All right, the aid just keeps on coming for Ukraine, at least from this country where President Biden has promised advanced weapon systems for Ukraine. In case you're counting now, it's about $42 billion in all, more than half of that military aid. But other countries, certainly among NATO countries and Western powers, they're dialing things back a little bit, concerned that the longer this drags on and the more weaponry and monies are provided, the deeper this gets. That is something that Mike Pompeo, the former U.S. Secretary of State, was telling me would be a huge mistake. Take a look.
Well, this is a European challenge, right? The confrontation is in Europe. We talk about Russia and Ukraine, but this is Vladimir Putin attacking Europe. Right. And the Europeans should be front and center. They should be leading, not only in terms of the money and weapon systems, but also in the central understanding that you have to deter someone like Vladimir Putin. This isn't about prolonging this so the Ukrainians can continue to fight. This is about convincing Vladimir Putin that he has to stop the atrocities that he's engaged in. And so when I see this fracturing on economic issues that we've talked about, you and I think before, it's very disconcerting, because in the end, this ought to be European-led. Will America always be at the front of these kinds of things just because of the nature of our exceptional country? But make no mistake about it, when you see that fracturing, Vladimir Putin sees it too.
Yeah, I'm wondering if we're wearing him out or he's wearing us out. And I'm talking collectively about the West and NATO in general, that some members fear the longer and deeper we get involved, the more of a mess this becomes, and all the monies involved get to be a drain. You've even seen it, Secretary, in our country, with people wondering, all right, with all the billions we're spending here, why not allocate those funds for better school safety in light of these shootings, what have you? How do you answer that?
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. In my judgment, in the end, we need to make sure that the money gets to where it's going. I think some of the concern has been, hey, $70 billion, you're going to give it to them over a matter of weeks or months. How the heck are they going to process use? Right. Will it get where you intend for the intended purposes that you're seeking? Second, we need to do the hard work to deter Vladimir Putin. I've heard folks talking about an off-ramp. Vladimir Putin no more wants an off-ramp in this thing than a man in the moon. He has been determined to extend Russia, call it Greater Russia, call it the resurrection of the Soviet Union. So you think his overtures,
this off-ramp where he talks about ease up on sanctions for me and I'll provide, a safety for food getting out of the country and aid coming into the country, you just don't buy it?
I don't buy it. At best, he might stop for a moment. The guns might fall silent for a week or a month. But Vladimir Putin's had this theory of the case for 20 years. What it took for our 4 years was we convinced him that the cost was too high, right? This is about the perception of cost to the decision maker, Vladimir Putin in this case. And his perception of cost, as a matter of fact, was that he didn't do it during our 4 years. That's what we need to do. We need to convince him that his cost is too high and that we are determined. That's why you opened with the fracture. That's the real risk. Not only that you see Europe fracture, but cascading crisis as well across the world, right? Chairman Kim's watching, the Ayatollah's watching. Everyone's watching to see if the West is prepared to defend the things that they've claimed they were prepared to defend.
You mentioned China's watching, and I'm thinking of this whole new surveillance of Taiwan and whether that's provocative and whether that is China and Russia, are seizing on what could be a blinking moment on the part of the West. Not all of the West and not all of NATO, but that they see something like that.
Yeah, 3 ideas. This is why you have friends in the world, right? So think of Asia. We think, was the United States come to defend Taiwan? The most important thing the Chinese Communist Party should see is that Japan, South Korea, the Australians, folks in other parts of Southeast Asia are determined together to push back against them. We'll provide the support. We'll be there.
Do you think China would seriously even get this provocative, invade Taiwan with this backdrop, that it looks at the economic measures we've taken against Russia and says, there, but by the grace of God, go so that this is not a likely threat?
I actually think it's just the converse of that, Neil.
Really? Okay.
I actually think they see that the ruble today is higher than it was when this adventure began, and they say that the West isn't serious about putting sanctions on.
But everything else is a disaster.
Yeah, we don't have stuff on the shelves in America, too. I mean, the global supply chain is a mess, the global economy. Russians probably in worse condition today than it was on February 24th as a domestic economic matter. But I think what Xi Jinping actually sees is that the West fletched out, that it didn't actually sanction all of the Russian banks. And if they're not going to do that to Russia, the 15th, 16th largest economy in the world, the chance that they're going to do that with the Chinese Communist Party and with China, where we're much more interconnected, our economy depends much more on the Chinese government continuing to have its economic functionality. I think he sees that as a green light from an economic perspective. I don't think for a second he believes the Biden administration will impose serious sanctions, or for that matter, that the world would put serious sanctions on his party.
Do you ever wonder why Putin keeps doing what he's doing? The talks that he's dealing with illness, maybe cancer, that he's in a world of hurt, that he's facing a mutiny among top generals in the military. They're just not, leaving en masse, but that his hold on power is tenuous. Do you buy that?
I don't. I do wonder why he keeps doing this, but that's a rationality.
There's no exit ramp for him right now.
No, I think that's right.
So he has to stay.
We apply a rationality in the West to these leaders that just doesn't exist. That there's one thing I saw as CIA director reading about these people, their personality characteristics, is that they don't value humanity. We think about, goodness gracious, you lost 15,000 soldiers, 25,000 soldiers. We lose 2, and America is sad. We're all see that, and we see the flags coming back to Dover. That doesn't happen in Russia. That's not the value set that Vladimir Putin applies.
But they can see everything else, right? They can see the long bank lines, the empty shelves. Do they peg any of this to what he's doing?
He's telling them the story.
And
the Russian Orthodox Church, that many of them are members of, is telling them a very interesting story about the greater Russia and the imperialism of the West.
So he's a hero.
I don't know if he's a hero, and maybe this won't last, but there's no doubt the perception of Vladimir Putin inside of his country is very different than the one that you and I and ordinary Americans would have.
You've served in a position at tight security because of your serving in that position from some of the biggest rogues on the planet, and it's a real and constant threat after leaving office for you. I'm just wondering, do you look at that and say it wasn't worth it? Do you look at it and say, what the hell was I thinking?
No, Neil. Susan and I feel like we were so privileged to get a chance to serve America for 4 years. We didn't get it right every day, but we went at it hard and with seriousness and with the love of this country in our hearts. I don't regret a single minute of it. I wouldn't change a thing. And in fact, I only had 1,000 days as Secretary of State. I wish I'd have had a handful more weeks.
The White House comes up. Your name is always on a short list of Republicans entertaining that. You always gracefully poo-poo the question, but I don't gracefully stop asking it. So what about that? I know you're focused on the midterms, but 2024 is shaping up to be a pretty interesting battle. Are you interested in the White House?
Neil, I'm always up for a good fight. I don't know how this progresses for Susan and me. We'll think, we'll pray, we'll work, and we will.
But to any of your own security issues that you've dealt with, would that entertain?
Won't be part of the calculation. The calculation will be pretty straightforward. Do we believe that this is the right place for us to go serve our country? Do we think we'd be a good leader, or whatever position it is we're pursuing? We've always found this place to serve. We'll keep doing that. That'll be our focus. And if we think so, we'll go take a run at it and convince the good people of Iowa and New Hampshire that we're the right people. And if not, we'll make sure that whoever it is putting themselves forward. We'll help them, him or her.
Whether your old boss runs or not, would that enter the equation?
Nah, it's just about, do you think you're the right person? It's pretty straightforward to decide that you're going to put yourself forward to be president of the United States, or for that matter, governor of Kansas or wherever.
But you wouldn't base it on whether Donald Trump are running again.
It's simply about, do you think you're the right person? If you do, you have an obligation to get after it.
Have you talked to the former president?
Yeah, I haven't talked to him in a little bit, but we communicate all the time.
You have good relations now? There was a little bit
for 4 years. For 4 years, I stayed there. 5 secretaries of defense, 4 national security advisors.
Since.
Just me. Oh yeah, no, still since. Yeah, still stay in touch with him.
Okay, yeah. So in the Georgia races and everything else, where that Trump bump didn't pan out the way it has in other states, do you think that's a reflection that he's lost some oomph within the party?
No, I still think he has an important place inside the conservative movement and the Republican Party, and that his ideas are going to be lasting. But Neil, I do always think, you asked about me, you asked about President Trump. It's never about me or any other person. It's always, for me, it's always about these ideas that made America great. And so this exceptional country needs another 250 good years. The world needs us to have another 250 good years. And so we shouldn't focus on the personalities. We should focus on the ideas and then find the right person or people to go carry those banners forward.
But we do focus on the personalities. That has a lot to do with it.
You have to have elections, and we should go fight over the ideas. And when we do that, this country is in a really darn good place.
Secretary Pompeo, great seeing you again. Thank you very much.
Sir.
Be well.